Hi everyone, let's find out the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. So as we know about the pollination, that pollination is basically the pollination is basically the transfer of pollen grains from anther, which is the male reproductive part, to the stigma, which is the female reproductive part. Now it depends that if this pollination is occurring on the same flower or on another flower which is present on the same plant, or this pollination is occurring between two different plants, that is the flowers which are located on two different plants. On that basis, the pollination can be divided into two parts. First one is self pollination and the second one is cross pollination. Now on the basis of this, we are going to discuss some differences between these. Firstly, we are going to talk about the self pollination. In case of self pollination, its definition is that self-pollination occurs when pollen from a flower fertilizes the ovule of the same flower. Now you can remember the term here, that same flower or another flower on the same plant. Remember, the plant is always same, either on the same flower or on another flower of the same plant. In case of cross-pollination occurs when pollen grains from one plant is transferred to the stigma of a flower, but it is on different plant of the same species. So this is the basic difference between self-pollination and the cross-pollination. Now let's talk about some more processes of them. In case of self-pollination, the pollen from the anther, that is the male part of a flower, is transferred to the stigma or the female part of the same flower or the another flower. So this one is the process of self-pollination. In case of cross-pollination, here basically the pollen is transferred from anther of one plant to the stigma of another plant, but here some external agents are required. As we know, these agents can be wind, these agents can be water, and some pollinators as well as bees, birds and butterflies. Now it depends on that which type of flower it is, which type of necessity it has for the pollination, and on that basis the agents do their work. For example, if we talk about the wind pollination, in that case the pollen grains should be light in weight, while the stigma part should be feathery so that they can stick the pollen grains on them. Similarly, in case of water, here the pollination occurs with the help of water in aquatic plants. And in case of some bees, birds, butterflies, here the requirement is that the flowers should be brightly colored so that they can attract the bees and birds and butterflies. After this, we are going to talk about the self-pollination, that where it can occur. So this can happen in monoecious plants. Which are monoecious plants? Monoecious plants are those which have both male and female reproductive organs on the same plant. And it can occur in both, basically the perfect flowers which have both male and female parts, and in some species of plants with unisexual flowers as well. If the flower is unisexual, then remember here the pollination will occur to another flower but on the same plant. Now in case of cross pollination, here we know that always pollination will be on some another flower of another plant. Now let's talk about some, we can say, advantages of this one and disadvantages as well. So firstly, if we are talking about the self pollination, so in this one it ensures reproduction even if there are no pollinators or other plants around. Because this one is self pollination, there is no need of any pollinator. While if we are talking about the cross pollination advantages, then in this one it increases the genetic diversity because this one is cross pollination, and it leads to stronger and more resistible offspring which are resistant to some diseases as well. After this, another advantage of self pollination is that it is efficient and reliable, that it favors, basically it makes sure that pollination occurs. When conditions for cross pollinations are unfavorable, then self pollination makes sure that pollination has done. After this, we are talking about the cross pollination. So in this one, here another advantage of cross pollination is that it results in better adaptation to environmental changes as well as in case of diseases. After this, in case of self pollination, some disadvantages are also there. The disadvantage here is that it reduces genetic diversity. That is, genetic diversity is not there. That's why we can say the offspring may face some diseases. And if we talk about the disadvantage of cross pollination, so it in this one it requires presence of other plants and pollinators. After this, we are going to talk about the self-pollination. So in this one, more susceptibility to diseases and environmental changes are there because here the genetic diversity is low. While in case of cross-pollination, here another disadvantage is that it is dependent on some external factors, and these external factors can be wind, water, and animal behavior as well. Now let's have a look on these images. It will be more clear to you. So this one is the part of a flower and anther and filament. This one is showing as stamen. And after this here stigma and style. This one is female reproductive part, that is the pistil one. Now here these are some parts of flower, that is sepal, these green colored part, petals, these are brightly colored petals, and other are stamen, which is the androecium part, and another one which is the female reproductive part or the gynoecium part. Now let's have a look on case of self pollination and cross pollination. If we are going to talk about the self pollination, so this one diagram is showing self pollination. Self pollination is the thing in which the pollen grains, you can see easily in this diagram, the pollen grains are transferred from this part to this part, basically from the anther to the stigma region, and this is happening in the same flower. Now maybe possible this is also happening to another flower, but it is essential that it is on the same plant. Now have a look on this one. In case of cross pollination, here the thing is in case of cross pollination, the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to another flower, and remember this is on different flower. These are not located on same. This is on different plants, different flowers and different plants. Suppose this one is one plant and this one is another plant, on which this one is flower and this one is flower. Now this will require some pollinators as some insects, bees and other, and this can be also happen with the help of wind and water as well, according to the need. So these were some basic differences between self pollination and cross pollination.